Okay, and this panel will take us up to lunch. And this is the Workforce Development Panel, and Nick is the Director of Entrepreneurial Practice, Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Michigan. So welcome, I hand it off to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining this panel. I think we all know that the advanced mobility sector has had such an important sort of change in terms of how everybody gets around. We've heard a lot about the business models or the motivations of the advancement of these technologies, switching from simply robo-taxis and reducing the labor costs to actually providing mobility and safety and a better outcome for all people that are sort of involved in this ecosystem. And one of the real critical barriers to the advancement and the wider adoption of all these technologies and these interesting innovations is the actual workforce that can help with the deployments, develop the technologies, and ultimately implement, again, the wider adoption of all of these important perspectives. And I'm joined here by a great panel of folks that represent various perspectives that are part of this workforce development, and I'd like to introduce them all now. So Daphne Tsai, who's an undergraduate student at the University of Michigan, just graduating this in a couple days, really. Congratulations. And you've been part of the U of M Michigan ecosystem and mobility. And if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about your background and your experiences at University of Michigan.
Right. Hello, I'm Daphne. I'm currently an undergraduate student studying computer science here at the University of Michigan. I'm graduating in a few weeks, but I'll be coming back here in the fall semester to pursue a master's degree in computer science. I was at for quite a long time, working with Kathy, who is here today, actually, and then moved on to join the Perot Jain TechLab at Mcity program. I was part of that last year.
Thank you, Daphne. And then next, I'd like to introduce Cemre Kavvasoglu. Sorry, last name a little bit bad. Who is product manager and director for North America for ADASTEC's operations, which was also, I'm proud to say, a member of the Perot Jain TechLab at Mcity program. And Cemre, let me turn it over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Cemre Kavvasoglu. I'm product management director for ADASTEC, responsible for North America. So my background is I'm a mechatronics engineer. I also had my master's on power electronics and clean energy systems, but I was always enthusiast on autonomous technologies. So I worked for AVL first, then I started working for ADASTEC. Right now I'm responsible for OEM relationships, bus production, and also deployments of automated buses. As a company, we develop automated software platform for public transportation buses, but we don't retrofit any vehicle. We directly collaborate with bus producers, produce a product together with them, and sell it together. With this kind of relationship, all of our customers have the warranty of the OEM, and when they ask for 10 buses, it can be happen. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cemre. And next, I'd like to introduce Amber Thalen, who is the director of, the Organizational Development Officer for the Michigan Department of Transportation. Amber.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So the Organizational Development Office at MDOT is only 4 years old. Back in 2018, our director at that time, Director Kirk Steidel, recognizing that our workforce needs were changing, we had at that time 40% of our organization was eligible to retire in the next 5 years. And so we hired a consultant, we got teams together, we focused on our workforce, and we built what we call the MDOT House. The longer name is a workforce and succession planning system. And our office was created to help the department deliver on the house and help us with our workforce challenges and to get us thinking about the future. And it's been a fun ride the last 4 years working on that. We've had some wins, but we're still working on a lot of things. So it's great to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Amber. And next, I'd like to introduce Spencer Lucker, who is the Director of Strategic Talent Initiatives at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Thanks, Nick, and good morning, everyone. So MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, entered the talent space about a year ago with the recognition that our industry partners that MEDC serves through business attraction and retention, as well as marketing services for the state of Michigan. We were hearing from industry, particularly our automotive and mobility partners, that there was a specific need for MEDC to be supporting them from a talent solutions perspective. So our talent solutions division was created a year ago to begin building industry collaboratives amongst our strategic partners to identify both the gaps that currently exist in the workforce system and begin building solutions to address those gaps. Those industry partners at the table with us include OEMs, suppliers, but also startups that are trying to navigate both business growth and creation while also figuring out their talent needs. So we work with higher ed partners, workforce, PK-12 partners, and then bringing industry into the mix to make sure that everyone's at the table to collaboratively solve our talent needs.
Thank you, Spencer. Daphne, let me start with you. It takes a very multidisciplinary approach in terms of, or there's a multidisciplinary need for skills in terms of what is going to power this next level of innovation in the advanced mobility space. Can you talk a little bit about some of the resources or some of the skills that you've developed in your time at University of Michigan that have prepared you for this? And do you have thoughts as to what's next for you in terms of how you're going to enter the workforce with this?
Yeah, so I can definitely talk a little bit about how I found my path into advanced mobility. Started off at during my freshman year. I was very grateful and lucky to work with two PIs who were very supportive of my interest in transportation mobility. I think that is one of the biggest factors when it comes to getting into this field, because mobility and transportation, especially in the autonomous industry, is a very niche field, especially when you're looking at the Midwest. A lot of the talent, a lot of the interest in entrepreneurship is in all the coasts, especially in California. But I was really lucky to be at where I had mentors who supported me and wanted me to pursue my interests and encouraged me to pursue things that maybe I wasn't necessarily have the technical skill for, especially as a freshman. Later on, because of my interest in transportation I developed through I found out about the TechLab at Mcity program. And over there, ended up being there for a year with ADASTEC actually. The TechLab at Mcity program taught me a lot about not just the technical skills you need to enter the field, but also entrepreneurial skills. So how to pitch your idea, but mostly how to advocate for yourself. Those are things that I wouldn't have learned in courses at university. A lot of the courses, especially as an engineer, are very technical, technically focused in terms of how do you make a program efficient, things like that. But they don't really teach you outside of the technical skills. You also need to have a very broad sense of your soft skills, your presentation skills, and how do you advocate for that on the field. So the TechLab program was something that really helped me hone those skills and also ultimately launched me into the field of advanced mobility.
Thank you. Do you have a position you're going into next year or anything?
Yeah, so this summer I'll actually be interning in Pittsburgh at an autonomous drone company working on 3D perception and computer vision, specifically in GPS denied navigation. So this position is actually, I have a big, really grateful for TechLab, because if it weren't for the technical experience I gained from the TechLab program, there was no way for me to even get into a perception position as a third-year undergrad. And after I'll come back to pursue my master's, like I mentioned. The goal is after graduating with my master's next year, I'm hoping to go back into the autonomous vehicle industry and work on perception.
Congratulations. That's great. Cemre, could you talk a little bit about the deployment that you've been leading at East Lansing? We heard a little bit about it in the last panel and such, but I think it's wonderful in that it's indicative of sort of the scale that ADASTEC is really envisioning in which its products can help, again, the wider adoption of level 4 at least. And related to that, what are the workforce development concerns that you have? What recruitment are you looking toward? What populations are you trying to target in terms of the support that you need to enable this actual deployment?
Sure. So we have, as ADASTEC right now, worldwide operations. One of them is in Michigan, East Lansing, with Michigan State University. And we have operations in Norway, France, Romania, Turkey. But also our HQ is in Ann Arbor. And also we have branch offices in Turkey. Now we have offices in Netherlands, Sweden, and Germany. So when you have a worldwide operations, it's always tough to operate all everything and get workforce that you need. So what we did here is, like, we were part of TechLab for 2 cohorts. We had around 11 students. So we were giving them some tutorials, giving them some assignments. So they worked, all of them worked on our sensor data that we shared with them, and they worked on our software modules that we are using on the bus currently. And after then, we hired them as an intern, 3 of them actually. So right now, one of them is still working with us. And addition to that, so we received lots of support from Ann Arbor Spark. They have a great opportunity called MI STEM Forward program. So we hired around 6 interns through the Sparks grant. And right now we still have 3 interns from Michigan State University. So it was, since we are a startup, it was a huge help for our company. But also we have several approaches for workforce development. So Turkey is one of our hub in Europe for our deployments. So in Turkey, what we do is we try to collaborate with universities like we do here. So right now we are arranging workshops, 10 days workshops for students. So they will get used to our sensors, sensor modalities, sensor data, again, all of our modules. And we plan to provide certificate to them together with the university. So after their graduation, during even like their bachelor or masters, we plan to hire them as full-time interns, and after graduation we plan to hire them as a full-time employee. And our next step over there is to create a curriculum together with the university, so they can teach all these things during their education. So whenever they graduate, we can hire them, because otherwise onboarding period is like around 6 months. They need to get used to it. And the projects we have, it's automated bus. It's like the one we deployed to Michigan State University. It's first in nation. So it's also, we have the project in Norway. It was on the news of Forbes. So it's also first in the Europe. So it's a very unique and niche area, and it's really hard to find an employee that fits your requirements.
Thank you. Now, I had the opportunity to ride the bus this past week, which was very impressive. And part of what was impressive was that, similar to Daisy from Maine Mobility, who mentioned this in the last panel, there are times in which the driver does need to take over because there are just challenging situations or inclement weather or so on and so forth. Does ADASTEC take any part in retraining bus drivers or people that are actually operating the vehicles? Or do you partner with the OEMs of the buses for this?
So basically, Michigan State University project is very special for us because it's a very fruitful partnership with Michigan State University, and we approach as it's like a research project for us. So our intent is to not operate our buses. So in Europe, we are collaborating with Keolis, which is world's one of the global transit operators. But here, like we have around a month period bus driver training, and because it's like a safety concern, and they need to be on board and they need to get used to the bus. And it's not just the automation. This is a full electric bus, and all these regular, like all these diesel or gas bus drivers needs to also get used to electric vehicles. So we have a really a month-long training for each driver.
Thank you. Amber, so you've mentioned that there is a really challenging need to increase the workforce of MDOT, public service, and all this. And it's a very exciting time because there's a tremendous amount of investment in rebuilding Michigan, as you mentioned to me a little bit ago. What programs is MDOT implementing? What innovative approaches to workforce development is sort of meeting these needs, both at the scale of operations or implementation, execution, but also training the workforce or retraining the workforce?
Yeah, great question. So, I guess before I start, I just want to mention, in addition to the fact that we have this workforce who are retiring, actually that 40% figure as of 2 years ago was already at 31. I mean, we're definitely losing experience. So at MDOT, we recognized we can't just approach this only from a recruitment perspective. It's not only a workforce programs, workforce development, it's all encompassing. Things like knowledge management, growing talent internally. So the MDOT House really looked at all of those areas for our organization to weather this storm and to grow and evolve in this new workforce climate that we're in. We also recognize things we're tracking at the department include things like population and demographic trends. We recognize that there's the boomers leaving the workforce. There's not enough younger generations to replace those boomers. We recognize that when we're recruiting and sometimes posting positions and getting 0 applicants, 1 applicant, we recognize that part of the reason is these people were never born. So we recognize that, but we also know that there's things that we can do differently. We can think differently about things. And that's one of the things that the MDOT House has helped us do is I think it's given our organization, number one, terminology. How do we talk about these things that weren't really at the forefront before? That's been really beneficial to us too. But it's also a culture change aspect. Elise and I were actually talking yesterday or 2 days ago, and we were talking about how, so a couple years ago, some of the changes that MDOT has been implementing, prior to just, I think 3 years ago, we were only able to hire our transportation engineers. You had to have a civil engineering degree. The department opened that up, worked with civil service. Now we can hire other degrees, other engineering degrees into those positions. However, there's a cultural change that comes with that too. We need to have managers and supervisors who are willing to open their minds and think differently about how we do our business. And in some areas you see that happening. But then, I've talked to, for example, I was talking to a manager in one of our work areas a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me that he's hired 2 mechanical engineers recently because he had 4 vacancies, couldn't find any civil engineers. And I said, well, how's it going? And he said, it's going really well. They're doing a great job, but it's taken a lot of training. I've got to invest a lot of my time into these students. And being from organizational development, I was like, what can we do to help you? Are there a couple courses, civil courses that perhaps that they could take that we could connect you with funding to accomplish? And he's like, that might help. That might help. So it's just, again, we need to constantly as an organization, and I'm sure many organizations, just think differently about how we always operated. And that can be challenging because we're focused on the work day to day, and what we recognize at MDOT is without the thinking about these workforce trends, I mean, the business doesn't always happen, or it happens, we're definitely having issues with employees getting burnt out because we've got situations where some of our areas, like for example, I was talking to our bridges area, they had 14 engineering vacancies within their design area. So I mean, that's a challenge on everybody else who's there delivering the program. And so these are things that are real to our organization, and we're looking at it from a multifaceted perspective. Things like growing talent internally. We've had some pretty good success with workforce programs. You mentioned internships. That's definitely been a great benefit for the department to have those internships, and we definitely try within these internship programs to couple that on-the-job experience with workforce development experience too. For example, in one of our programs, summer internship programs that for college students, We have Hour of Powers every Thursday where we're looking at different, some folks call them soft skills. We like to call them fundamental skills. And that is part of the internship experience too, is those skill sets like emotional intelligence and like communication, and that we need to see in our organization to really be a success. So those are coupling that on-the-job experience with that workforce development training has been something that our organization has had a lot of luck with. So I'll stop for now. I could talk forever. We're really passionate about this work, and definitely want to continue working and learning and how we can help our organization to be successful with our workforce challenges.
Well, Amber, could you share a little bit about the TDRP program, and also how is that helping in terms of recruiting people to the state of Michigan?
Yeah, so one of our workforce programs, our summer internships, is Transportation Diversity Recruitment Program. Government, we love acronyms, so TDRP for short. And so with that program, it's specifically, we also recognize with the changing demographics that our population as a country is becoming more diverse, and our industry is relatively stagnant in that way. And we recognize that there's a lot we need to do in order to attract newer communities of people who haven't always been part of our industry into our industry. And so one of the things that we're doing through the TDRP program is we are partnering and recruiting from HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, especially those with engineering programs or STEM programs, and bringing them to Michigan. We have federal funding, workforce development funds to pay for their housing and to pay for their workforce development. We provide stipends for their transportation. We give them state cars too for their work transportation. We also provide stipends for, it's a month before you get your first paycheck working at state government. We provide stipends to get them, food and everything that they need during that first month. And in that program, we've recently expanded. We only have so much capacity at our department to have quality internship experiences. And we have an in-state internship program as well. So what we've done the last couple of years is expanded that program and invited in our industry partners as well. So we have our ACEC, American Council for Engineering Companies of Michigan, as well as this year is the first year we're inviting our MITA partners, the Michigan Infrastructure Transportation Association. Hopefully I got that right. And those companies are also hiring. This year they're actually surpassing MDOT. Last year we had 65 total HBCU students attending summer internships. Half of those were at MDOT, or actually just under half, and the rest were at those ACEC and companies. This year, because of bringing MITA in and additional ACEC companies getting involved, they're going to surpass MDOT in the amount of interns that they're bringing in. And so that program's been very successful, as well as our state internship. For anyone in state, we recruit too, and we have typically about 100 to 150 interns in state too every summer, and those programs have been really beneficial to feeding new talent to our organization. For example, we have another program, Engineer Development Program, and that is full-time engineers that we hire into our organization, and they have the opportunity to learn various aspects of engineering, whether it's construction or development or geometrics, bridges. They get to kind of go around the organization and try different aspects of engineering during their first 2 years within the organization. And that program is definitely a very successful program, and a lot of the applicants for that program come from our interns. So that's been a very beneficial, kind of creating those pipeline and those pathways into the organization.
Thank you, Amber. Spencer, can you talk a little bit about the strategic investments that the MEDC is making in connected and autonomous transportation in the state of Michigan? And how is that related to, or how is the workforce development that MEDC is involved with sort of supporting that or needed for those investments?
Yeah, so when MEDC, went down this path, we recognized that there are rules already leading in workforce development, right? You have the state's Labor and Economic Opportunity, LEO department that, and their workforce development segment. You have the Michigan Works agencies that work closely with industry partners as well as talent on the ground in their communities. And then we obviously have our education partners that as you've heard here, provide Daphne with great opportunities to become that talent that employers are looking for, or for employers like MDOT and ADASTEC to access that talent and be able to grow as an organization. And what we wanted to do is jump into the game to support those investments in what we would argue is the state of Michigan's greatest natural resource. We have Great Lakes, we have beautiful communities, but really our people are what bring businesses to the state more than anything else. That's what we hear in business attraction and retention conversations. Michigan is a place where businesses can be confident that whether they're public sector or private sector, they can be confident that they can access talent. I think what the challenges that we hope to face is our universities produce amazing talent. I think the stat is we have the greatest concentration of engineers in the entire country. That's something we should be proud of, right? And that's not something everyone knows. Now the challenge is, how do we keep that talent once they graduate? So Daphne, I'm super excited you're going to Pittsburgh for the summer. I am even more excited to get that experience. I'm more excited that you're coming back to Michigan for your graduate program. And frankly, one of our goals is to ensure when you graduate from that graduate program that you are connecting to one of the great employers that we have in this state, right? We want to keep like your mind and your talent in this state. Now, what are some of the ways we're doing that, right? So one of the gaps that we are filling when in entering the workforce development and talent space is a concerted partnership with higher ed that helps connect them to industry that higher ed will tell you they just haven't had historically. We work very closely with Mcity. Part of the reason why I'm probably on this panel is because Mcity is familiar with the work we're doing, right? And we are investing in the University of Michigan as one of 3 pilot sites through Mcity for what we're calling the Michigander EV Scholars Program. This is not your typical funding a specific program. We're actually incentivizing. I'm not supposed to use the word incentive, but I think we're not public, right? There's no press here. Cool. So we are incentivizing students like Daphne when they graduate to stay in state with a $10,000 scholarship through, in this case, the University of Michigan, to incentivize her to sign an offer letter with a company staying in state, right? We know that, and I think Daphne, you mentioned, like a lot of the excitement is on the coasts, right? A lot of the innovation we think is on the coast. We know in Michigan that a lot of that innovation is happening here. We just have to gin up that excitement and keep it here. So that's one of the investments we're making. We're also making strategic investments in those three universities, University of Michigan, Michigan State, and Michigan Tech, up in Houghton in the UP, as well as Ferris State University over on the west side of the state, Schoolcraft College and Macomb Community College, 2 really strong 2-year community colleges in Metro Detroit, to build that capacity, whether it's faculty and staff, whether it's programming, whether it's equipment, to ensure that they're positioned to create the curriculum that we are hearing from industry needs to be created, right? We are making those investments so that our higher ed partners are competitive and positioned to work closely with industry, because we know that that's how higher ed is successful, that's how industry is successful, and that's how our economy is successful when we're making those connections. The other piece to that is my heart jumped when Cemre mentioned My STEM Forward, because that is actually our program that we fund through Ann Arbor Spark. So I love hearing when businesses are taking advantage of a program like My STEM Forward. There is, I can't rattle the stats off the top of my head, but there is very clear research that when an undergrad or graduate student has an internship with a company, the likelihood of them either transitioning to that company upon graduation, or at least staying in the environment in which that company was working, in which they were working with that company, skyrockets. So internships and fellowships are a great way for us to keep our talent in state, because again, as I mentioned, like we're producing the talent we need, right? The key is retaining that talent and keeping them upon graduation. So we are doubling down on My STEM Forward. There will be some news coming out soon in the next month or so about expansion of My STEM Forward. And then additionally, we are looking at investing in the longer term pipeline. So actually within our team, a lot of the work that I lead is around PK-12 engagement. And our younger students before high school graduation are often lost in the conversation. We think that, well, the system already works, and they're getting science and they're getting social sciences, and they're kind of making their way through science and math. But the system has actually been very much disconnected from industry and higher ed in ways that we have a real opportunity to further invest in. So we are making a concerted effort to identify what we're calling a menu of opportunities for employers at the table with us to engage with their local PK-12 systems. And within those opportunities, such as teacher externships, ensuring that our teachers, whether they're science specific or a fifth grade teacher that covers all the courses, they understand what it's like to work in a facility that we want them to be encouraging their students to be considering, right? We want to touch the education of students at an early age, even as early as pre-K, and elementary years, so that they understand the opportunities that are available to them in STEM fields before they necessarily track themselves out of STEM or are tracked by the system out of STEM. So it's too late if we wait until high school to try to get someone in a CTE program. We're making those investments through digital curricula that talk about EV and mobility and get young people excited about these careers that we know are present but also growing in our state. So that's a handful. Similarly, I could talk about this for hours. We're doing some really exciting work, but that's a few of the investments that we're making in 2023 and hoping to expand in the coming years.
That's great. All these programs that have been mentioned are fantastic. And I think something that is we should all be very proud of here in Michigan is that you're all an example of how this ecosystem is working together in a very collaborative and coordinated fashion. And it's actually developing the workforce that we need in order to actually achieve this new mobility panacea that we're envisioning. So with that in mind, is there a question for each of you, starting with you, Daphne? Are there recommendations or advice that you would give to anybody looking to get into this space, either start a career in the advanced mobility or connected vehicle space, or switch careers into it, or prepare for a career in the space?
I can speak from my perspective as a undergraduate student trying to enter the field. Don't settle for the status quo. Anything is possible. There is no idea that is too insane as long as you find the right people. So what exactly does that mean? So for me, I knew I was very passionate about autonomous technology, and I found the right people for that through Mcity and through Mcity, through the TechLab program. One thing that I think the university should be very proud of is the fact that we have Mcity here. You can't say the same about a lot of the other public universities, right? So really leveraging the fact that we have Mcity and connecting this facility with some of the really interested and passionate students at the university. And when you find that group of people, anything's possible. And I can illustrate this with an example through something like 3D printing. So when 3D printing was first introduced, a lot of people thought it was just something to tinker with. You can make toys out of it. You can make small things, keychains, maybe something like that, right? And then a couple weeks ago, what did we see? Relativity launched the first 3D printed rocket into space, and it passed Max Q. So how did that happen? It happened through a group of people who are passionate about this type of technology. They took the idea of 3D printing and realized, what if we just use that and apply it to current technology and make it even better? So if you can find the right people that share your ideas, even if you don't necessarily have all the skills you might need, I can say that as an undergrad, I might not have the advanced technical skills I need that I would develop in grad school. As long as you find the right people and you find the right support system and you're right in the right ecosystem, which is everything that the university has to offer through TechLab, through Tree again, then really anything is possible, and you can also just create the next big thing.
Thank you. Cemre.
So since we are running a worldwide operation, so the biggest challenge we are facing is to not like flexibility actually. So what we expect from our employees to have a global mindset. Of course, language is not problem here, but like we have several locations, so language is one of the important thing for us. Also, the flexibility, because we are a startup and we have several locations. Most probably next year, we will have buses in Israel, Australia, Sweden, Germany, and Netherlands as well. So that means if we have a demo tomorrow, and if it is urgent, I might go there to conclude that demo and help my colleagues over there. So it is on our end, it is quite important. But also, what we do in our company is like we try to send all of our employees to our fields so they can experience everything firsthand. So it is also quite important, because when you don't really experience it, it doesn't mean a lot to them. For example, if I give a short example, so our software developers and from planning and control team, so we always had, like for a short term, we always had double stops at the bus stops. So we were mentioning about this problem to our engineers, and they didn't pay a lot of attention. So then we sent two of them, one of them to Norway, one of them to here, Michigan. So they experienced it in first hand, and they realized that how this kind of problem can affect the comfort of the riders. So these things are very important, and there are lots of opportunities to improve themselves. All these grants programs are out there. They just need to search it and try to find what fits best for them.
Thank you. Amber?
One of my colleagues, James Jackson, who's the manager of the TDRP program I talked about with the partnership with HBCUs, I love one of his sayings. He's got several of them that students all know. But he says, education gets you to the door, experience gets you through the door. And so that, I think, is one of the things we've seen in our department, is any opportunity that you have to have experience in the industry, whether it's through projects or within your programs that you're working on, or internships. They're so valuable, and I want to even think beyond. MDOT has more needs beyond those that require 4-year degrees. We have, within our organization, we have 27% of our organization is largely field workers, whether it's maintenance workers, transportation technicians out in the field. In those cases, what we're working on is trying to grow that talent and those skills through things like apprenticeships. We're building MDOT's first apprenticeship program right now. We are also hiring a CDL driver. We have them on board. We're working on getting that, a CDL trainer. We're working on getting that training program up and running by this summer, so that we can have the opportunity to hire folks who don't have CDLs and train them in-house for our maintenance worker positions. So it's just that experience, and whether you learn that on the job or you get it through different partnerships or internships, that's super critical to having a successful employee for our organization.
Thank you. Spencer?
So a couple of very clear things for any of the students in the room. If you're a student at the University of Michigan, Michigan State, or Michigan Tech, you should reach out to your College of Engineering partner for us. For U of M specifically, Vicki Waters and Henry Liu. Is Vicki in the room? I haven't met you. No? Okay, I haven't met you in person, so I wasn't sure. Well, you can talk to Sue Carney, actually, because she can help connect you, because Mcity is that direct partner of ours, leading the Michigander EV Scholars Program here on campus, or well, here at U of M's campus. Connect with them, because that program is not only connecting you to mentorship and internship opportunities and those experiences that Amber just mentioned. It also, as I mentioned earlier, props you up for the potential opportunity for that $10,000 scholarship to stay in state. So that's a very clear action that you can take. And then at MSU and Michigan Tech, partners within their respective colleges of engineering. If you are a student at a different school, I would say connect with your career services center or career advisor, because we are working closely with as many of the public schools as we can, public universities and community colleges, to ensure that they have the resources to help you navigate what career opportunities we know exist currently. The other concrete action is if you are actively looking for a job or just want to get a sense of what employers have out there right now, go to MichiganEVJobs.org. That is our current landing page for submitting your information to learn more about when it's specifically EV jobs, but in the landing page. However, it is much broader than just electric vehicles. So it encompasses a lot of what CCAT involves with connected and automated transportation. It's OEM, suppliers, startups, et cetera. We are prepared to help connect you with those resources. In September, and I see one of my dinner table partners over here on the right, Dr. Molnar. We were talking about our talent attraction retention efforts that we are launching come September. As MEDC is known for, with Pure Michigan, the Pure Michigan campaign, Pure Opportunity, we are launching in September a major talent campaign too, to help us, as I mentioned, both attract out-of-state talent as well as retain the great talent we have here. So be on the lookout for that. We will be launching a website and whole marketing campaign to help folks understand the amazing assets we have in this state, whether it is employment opportunities with like an ADASTEC or MDOT, or many of the other employers at the table with us, or the great lifestyle that we have here that any of us who live in Michigan can attest. That's often the reason why we stay here, right? So that's another way for, I think, the students to get involved. And then if you are an employer, whether you are a small startup or entrepreneur with a great idea, or part of a major company that is investing in this space, we are happy to either work with you directly through our talent action team, or connect you with other amazing programs like EV Jobs Academy that is operating across the state. If you haven't been to Michigan Central Station yet, you should absolutely make it down there to see a lot of the innovation that's going on, see the amazing companies that between Ford, Michigan Central, and New Lab, they are bringing from all over the world right here to Michigan, right? To build the next generation of connected and autonomous transportation and mobility solutions. We have so many cool things happening in this state. So feel free to connect with us or Leo or Michigan Central and Mcity. Honestly, any of our education and industry partners can help connect you to the exciting stuff going on in the state right now.
Thank you. I'd like to open it now for questions from the audience. We've got about 15 minutes.
I'll ask a quick one, Spencer. You mentioned the jobs placement and everything very rich right here, and that you're working with other universities to try to incentivize people as well. What are you seeing about the workforce opportunities beyond Washtenaw County, and how far throughout the state do you see opportunities for folks?
Specifically in mobility or broad?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So in the mobility space right now, we have 15 employer partners or industry partners at the table with us that represent pretty clear geographies that wouldn't be surprising to most folks, right? Metro Detroit, which we would include Washtenaw County in. So Southeast Michigan, Lansing area, so mid-Michigan, and then West Michigan, both Grand Rapids and to the coast. the fresh coast, as we're starting to hear it called. So those three geographies really have, major opportunity. We, within the talent action team, as we're building our solutions, we're focused on 4 key occupations that industry has lifted up as the greatest need for talent support. Those being software developers and electrical engineers at the higher ed, requisite level, and then production and supervisors at the lower educational requisites. For software developers and electrical engineers, a lot of that demand is in Southeast Michigan between, Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, over to Metro Detroit. And then the production and supervisor roles, really are focused on West Michigan and Mid-Michigan. So that's what we're seeing so far. That said, if you expand into the opportunities coming in the semiconductor space that isn't mobility specific, but is directly aligned, and they see, in nanotechnology, like they see automotive and mobility as their prime customer, that's expanding in the Great Lakes Bay Area. There's some really interesting work going on in the Upper Peninsula. So I think, statewide, there's real opportunity. It just depends on which specific employer or industry or sector within mobility you're interested in.
Hi, Greg Stevens, formerly from Ford, retired now. Got to work with Nick and TechLab. Well, actually, one of the last things I did as a Ford employee was get Ford integrated with TechLab, which I think is a great opportunity. Maybe a question for you, Spencer. I'm really excited about the fact that there's somebody focused on trying to retain talent in Michigan, because that was the #1 problem I saw within Ford. Was there was just this massive suck from Silicon Valley, basically, that just, we were competing, everybody we were making offers to were getting offers from Google, Facebook, Amazon, and they were offering dramatically more money than we could offer. And it was just a really difficult situation. But what I'm wondering about, what my question is has that changed because of the fact that, we've seen within the last 6 months, right, tens of thousands of layoffs in those companies, and those companies have sort of actively admitted that they need to focus on efficiency because they were spending way too much. Has that changed the game? Does that give us an opportunity? Has that vacuum from Silicon Valley sort of muted a bit to let, people really sort of understand what's possible in Michigan?
So I think it is yet to be seen what all these layoffs will do to salary levels. I mean, we just don't know yet. We're still, frankly, right now, we're still scrambling to make sure that all those laid off people know about the great opportunities in Michigan, because we want all 120,000 of them, right? We'll figure out the housing once they get here, but I think it's still yet to be seen what that will do to wages and salaries. What I will say though is that this next generation of talent is concerned about lifestyle and cost of living in a way that the generation you're speaking to that was so hard to keep here. I think it's a different game. And I actually, after I speak, I'd love to hear from ADASTEC and MDOT about what y'all are doing in addressing that exact issue. But we recognize Michigan's never Michigan companies will most likely never be the highest payers, right? But they don't need to be, because the cost of living is so drastically different than on the coast. I mean, as someone, I lived on the East Coast for 10 years, and I couldn't wait to get to Michigan when my wife got her professional opportunity, because the cost of living for us, just our housing alone, was drastically different. And I think that message really resonates with a lot of people right now. Both that generation that we lost, I think we have real opportunity to nab those boomerang folks, whether they're originally from Michigan or they came here for undergrad and stayed for a little bit and then, went to make, I don't know, 250, 300, 400 grand, and then realized that 250, 300, 400 grand doesn't go very far when your 600 square foot apartment costs $1.2 million, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that narrative is shifting, and that reality is shifting, and that's part of what our talent attraction retention campaign is working to do, is make sure that that people know that. We did a bunch of research. The last thing I'll say on this, we did a bunch of research to inform the talent campaign that we're building out. And when we asked people, both students and skilled talent, what do you know about Michigan, professionally or otherwise? The researchers did this big word bubble to report back to us, and the biggest word was, I don't know. Okay, that's a problem, but that's our problem to solve. And from my perspective, that's a really easy problem to solve. So, talk about another action all of us in this room can take. 10, 15 years ago, there was a campaign in Detroit, say nice things about Detroit. I think we need to expand that to say nice things about Michigan. When you meet people, when you're recruiting talent from out of state, we should be talking very positively about all of our experiences in Michigan, because that's going to really resonate with people.
Go ahead. Do you want to ask another question, or should I address?
Go ahead, Amber.
Okay. To build on what you said, we do have that experience with the TDRP program of having out-of-state students come, and largely a lot of those students are from down south, is where a lot of them are coming from the HBCUs there. And we try to make efforts to take them to some of the places that are really cool about Michigan, like the Great Lakes, and let them see some of our awesome projects, our international bridges, and just try to sell them on the idea of what it's like to be here. They have lots of questions about winter, which we talk about, opportunities that happen in winter too, because they're not here to experience that. So it's just us sharing. But one of the other things that we found a lot of success with, I know a lot of our work areas assign interns with buddies, which allow them to experience Michigan outside of the work area too, whether it's just a barbecue for July 4th or it's connecting them with things happening in the communities, and that's been a very beneficial thing too. So yeah, and I guess I also want to just comment that regarding, always be recruiting is one of our another saying that we have in our office. And we've been making great efforts to connect through automating a lot of our recruiting, and finding great opportunities through Handshake. And we're reaching students that we hadn't historically, by using that to the fullest potential. And other tools, like we have new tools within our own NeoGov software, NeoAttract, where we're just reaching directly to applicants through emails, and we are communicating with them, carrying on conversations with them about opportunities. So I think that that's a way to reach broader audiences as our organizations, as we are hiring people, by using those technologies more than we ever have. At least we're finding a lot of success with that too.
I think if I could just add one last thing to that. I think what's interesting about what we're building in Michigan is this collaboration between the public and the private sector and the educational entities that are so prolific in terms of turning out the technical talent. And that if we are, and we see this in TechLab often when we're recruiting students that are coming from out of state, and they're saying, oh, we're coming to the University of Michigan because we know of this program, because they can get experience in the field that they want to work in. And as long as we're providing them with the experience that's related to what's happening in the state of Michigan, they're familiar with it. And if they go to one of the coasts and make a significant amount of money and then decide that they're going to solve a problem, hopefully that's a problem they're familiar with here in Michigan, so that they at least find their way back here. But I think when all of you gave a recommendation essentially of what people should think about when they're trying to get into the space, experience came up. And I think that is something that is defensible to the area, and what we've shown in the past, more than 100 years ago, that we can do well, particularly when it comes to transportation. Go ahead.
I'm Bill Milliken. I'm a commercial real estate broker in this market. And Spencer, I have an aside for you on some market conditions. In Chicago, Meta and Salesforce are subletting 340,000 square feet of their prime downtown Chicago office space. The office, there's 100 million square feet of office space vacant in Chicago now. San Francisco's vacancy rate in office is 30%. So there are a lot of big markets around the country that heretofore we may have competed with that may have a lot of personnel that would take a good look at the positions that you're all talking about here in Michigan.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just real fast to that point, I mean, we're absolutely going after the talent in Chicago and Northern California. So that's good to hear. We know they're out there, and we know from that research that Chicago is one of the only metros that it was the state of Michigan that the state of Michigan has net immigration from. So we're already doing a pretty good job of gaining folks from Chicago, but I think there's a lot of room for growth in that. And frankly, I didn't believe it at first, but when I saw the data, we're starting to gain some significant growth from Northern California, because again, I think people are recognizing that the lifestyle in Northern California that and the cost of living just isn't sustainable in a way that Michigan can compete with.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank our panel.